Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Cloudcast, coming to you live here from our massive studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Just me tonight. Aaron is still out and about traveling. So, one of the things that gets discussed all the time is this premise that software is eating the world. We're seeing new businesses being started all the time that are software-centric. We're seeing new applications being built all the time. And we tend to forget that, somewhere between, the developer having a great idea and that thing getting out on a website, onto your mobile phone, into an IoT device, there's a huge set of processes and things that have to happen. And so tonight we're really excited to sort of talk about that. We're excited to have Shlomi Ben Haim, who is CEO of JFrog. So Shlomi, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Hey, Brian. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on your show. Thank you.
Yeah. So, just, a little bit of background for your journey. You've been with JFrog basically since the beginning, running the company. Give us a little bit of, what's, a little bit of your background and what the last 6-7 years of running JFrog has been like.
Well, it is a great journey, and together with the co-founder Yoav Landman, our CTO, and Fred Simon, our chief architect, we founded JFrog, which is our second venture. Actually, our first company was successfully acquired in 2005. 3 years later, we stepped out and found JFrog to be the company behind Artifactory, the Universal Repository Manager.
Right. And, for anybody that's not familiar with JFrog, so, our audience, very familiar with kind of what's going on in open source, GitHub, things like Jenkins and so forth. Where does Artifactory and JFrog and Bintray, where do you guys kind of fit in the big picture of what everybody tends to call continuous delivery, continuous integration?
Yes, this is the specific domain that we are part of. So people would call us the binary people. Okay. We came up with the first repository manager to manage your binaries. And when we realized that the old pain is about how fast can you release software, how can you automate it and have more releases and more updates, we realized that you have to break software into pieces, and for that you will have to store binaries as binaries and treat them as first-level citizens. And this is how we came up with the need for a smart binary repository manager that integrates with your continuous integration environment. This is how we work with Git and the GitHub tools. This is how we work with Jenkins and other CI servers and the CloudBees guys. And with a lot of community wisdom injected to our roadmap, we built Artifactory to be a universal solution that supports whatever developer you are. So you can use C++, Java, Ruby, Scala, whatever, or whatever DevOps engineer you are and whatever packages you use, like RPM, Debian, Docker. And this is how we came up with the first Docker registry, the first NPM repository, and the first Maven repository.
Right. which everybody's kind of trying to catch up to you guys these days. And so, I feel like there's a lot of talk these days about, buzzwords like cloud native applications and microservices. And, like we said, all this talk about how software is changing businesses, which is very true. We see examples of it all the time. But I don't feel like there's enough discussion about, what goes into, getting that software into production. And how do you find that, maybe outside of the valley sometimes, how do you find that companies they're trying to write more software or trying to be more nimble, do they get, are they getting, what all has to go on behind the scenes to make that possible, that, they need Artifactory, they need Bintray, they need the things that JFrog delivers?
Absolutely. And every day we see more and more people that are thinking that way and executing this methodology. So just something like 4 years ago, you would still find developers or engineers that would be debating the need for a repository manager for binaries. They would still argue the fact that they can host their binaries on a version control. Today, I think it's a common practice. Everybody understands that in order to automate your binary flow and in order to build software fast, you would have to treat the code on the binary level. And this is how they use Artifactory as the storage house that integrate with the continuous integration. The next logical step was to distribute binaries as not as the application or as a code. And while GitHub is doing a great job managing source code or tools that are managing version control, Bintray allows you actually to distribute binaries as binaries, and software packages stay as software packages. And this is why we just celebrate on April over 1 billion downloads from Bintray a month.
Wow.
1 billion a month, yes.
Wow, it's incredible. The numbers kind of boggles the mind when they get that big. It's interesting when I talk to the DevOps crowd. There's obviously lots of talk about collaboration and culture and what people need to do. But what I always tend to find is they always come back to saying, if I have to start somewhere in this new process of developing software and this new model, you've got to get your continuous integration pipeline first, right? In terms of tools and technology, do you find that sort of tends to be a good starting point? You've got to have the ability that says whenever you work out between your teams how you're going to go fast, you've got to have that sort of engine factory in the middle that's ready to deal with it as a good starting point when people want to talk about DevOps and moving faster with software.
Absolutely. I think that the fact that most of the organization, and it doesn't matter if it's big or small or what industry it's coming from, we have customers from different industries in different sizes, and everybody speak about how fast they should build their software and how fast they should release their software. We always say in JFrog that we are not in the business of software, we are in the business of speed, and we are software providers. So this is the number one pain that we are trying to solve. And while we are doing it, we have to understand that it's a lot of plumbing issue that you have to take care of. You have to make sure that your CI server works with your repository, that works with your deployment tool, that works well with your data center, and everything is super secure.
Right.
So
right.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. You just brought up a good point. You said, we're in the business of going fast. Everybody talks about delivering software faster, which is, obviously it's an easy thing to say, hey, the faster we deliver software, the better, user experience. But there's some red flags in their places, right? You start having a lot of people developing software. You have to be concerned about, where'd the software come from? Is it secure? Did we introduce a vulnerability? Are we getting outside of compliance? You guys have some pretty exciting announcements coming up around that ability to sort of inspect what's going on as software is being built and packaged and so forth. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are very excited to launch our fourth product, basically, which called JFrog X-Ray. And it's exactly as you mentioned, Brian. People don't really know what their build include, what they release, and how it will impact their production. And while we are very, very well executing the automation these days together with the other partners in this ecosystem, we are still not certain about what we push to production. And this is how we came up with JFrog X-Ray. So JFrog X-Ray is not just a smart scanner that sits on top of your repository and reports what your containers includes or what your software packages include. It will give you a very, very clear dependency graph that will take you all the way to the bottom. So you will know exactly what the container have inside, what the packages have inside, and what dependencies are included. But not just that, we wanted to have this radical transparency plus an impact analysis tool that will tell you that this security vulnerability that you have, this compliance that you have, will impact you on production in that data center or data center with this build or that build. And everything should be super automated with the very powerful API. So we built and designed X-Ray to be a generic tool. It will ride on top of databases of security vulnerability like VersionI, which come out of the box with X-Ray, or Black Duck, our partners that we will integrate with, White Source, our partners that we will integrate with. And remember that X-Ray is integrating with Artifactory, which anyways have all the dependencies and the metadatas on the binary level. So this is a very powerful tool that not just providing you with the transparency and the insight into your containers or software packages, but also provide you with the impact analysis. And we are excited to have this first solution in the world that will help you protect your production and maybe will smooth the conversation between DevOps and InfoSec engineers.
Yeah, no, that's exciting because I think what we see is, we're starting to see people, kind of come to this realization. We hear things like Docker say, 60, 70% of the things in Docker Hub, unfortunately are, infected with some sort of security vulnerability, a malware or something. And we see a lot of people that build some technology that might be, for example, container-centric or OS-centric. I think people are really looking for, a little broader scope in terms of, I want it to be able to, not sort of force me to have to use a specific technology, but be intelligent enough to be able to plug in, be able to understand, has this been deployed? If it's already been deployed, where is it? How do I get it back out of production? How do I, what do I have to do to patch it? So that's a very, very cool, powerful piece of technology you're building. So give us a sense. I was looking over. You guys have a user conference, and I want to get into that a little bit. But I was looking over the people that are coming to your user conference next week. A lot of really well-known names, technology names. Adrian Cockcroft will be there from Netflix, and Yahoo will be there. Google will be there. But you guys have a lot of different customers. Can you give us a sense sometimes? What do your customers look like that aren't in Silicon Valley, that are out, in the Midwest of the United States or other parts of the world that aren't, in Silicon Valley? What are they doing to adopt, DevOps, adopt continuous integration? Do you see differences around the world?
So we see differences in different industries and not necessarily in locations. Okay. So the one thing that we are very excited to see is that now with over 2,000 customers and more than 60,000 installed open source servers, we really kind of monitoring the dev and DevOps industry. And what we see is that there are some standards in the market today. So we see that more than 75% of the industry will use Jenkins as their CI servers. And most of our users will start a project with Git as the version control. And we are happy and proud and honored to be in these statistics, having Artifactory is one of the standards. And people are now starting to design their solution with building their tool set based on the community wisdom and not just what one vendor or another vendor told them. And this is something very strong. Speaking about SwampUp next week, it's amazing to see the speaker lineup, because you can see there speakers from startups of a few people, and you can see the speakers from companies like Netflix and Oracle and VMware and Riot Games. And this is amazing because everybody is sharing the same best practices and of how to do automation these days. And remember, there are the tools which are the tap at the wall. These are the tools that you open the tap and you see water flowing. And there are the tools that are the pipe inside the walls, like JFrog, like the other DevOps tool, that behind the scene are the engine that boosts the software and make it liquid. But nothing happened until you don't see the water flowing, right? But right. When you see that the software is not flowing, then you break the wall. And this is where DevOps shine. This is where DevOps start to put some efforts in optimizing this whole pipe all the way from build to production. Everything should be with zero human intervention. Yeah,
no, that's fascinating. I'm thinking about this. There's certain acronyms that float around in our industry. We've got things like LampStack that people know from a development perspective, and some other things. But it's interesting. You were talking about 75% of the people use Git or they use Jenkins. You guys should come up with sort of an acronym that includes maybe Git, Jenkins, JFrog, or Artifactory. So there's a terminology that kind of goes with what's going on, like you said, in the behind the walls plumbing and so forth. Kind of make that a standard. So I'll ask you, that's funny that you mentioned it, Brian. We already call it inside the community the JAG stack.
JUG stands for Jenkins Artifactory Git. So everybody already used the JUG stack buzzword.
Good.
And funny that you mentioned it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it, but I need to pay a little more attention to that. So, it was interesting. I was watching some of the videos from last year's one. You came out, you gave a talk, you were really passionate, and just said, look, these communities are all about users, and you're doing your event in Napa, which is by itself a fantastic place to visit. What do you get from users? What do you see at your user conference that maybe is a little bit different than other things in terms of people sharing, in terms of kind of how the idea flow works, or new ideas that are coming up?
Yeah, well, what a great question. Thank you for that. We built SwampUp to be different than other conferences. Along the year, we are joining more than 50 different conferences of the community, different communities, Python, Java, Scala, DevOps, Dev, all kind of conferences. And what we wanted to create with SwampUp was a bit different. It's not just about the content, and it's not just about the speakers, it's about community connect. And while you take this community out of the city and isolate them in a good way, in a great place like Napa, in a great time of the year like May, you allow them to interact after the conference and after the talks were done, and sitting with the speaker on the same table when we have dinner together and when we have a beer together at the Kash Bar on the after party. And this is all about building a knowledge center that is not owned by a vendor. It's a knowledge center that is owned by the community. And people are enriching each other, empowering each other, staying in touch. We got some emails from people that asked us, what about SwampUp, even before we announced SwampUp. And this is why we doubled the number of days. So last year it was 1 day. This year it will be 2 days. And we have more than 4 tracks. Last year it was 2 tracks. So it means that the community votes with the leg. And we are very, very excited to be there. And of course, we are welcoming everyone to join us in Napa.
Yeah, no, it looks like a cool event. We're recording this a little bit early. It'll go out right around the time when the show starts. So, hopefully maybe some of the sessions will get recorded and people can watch them if they don't get a chance to attend. So I'll ask you the last question because I know you're busy. Software by itself is difficult to build, but we're seeing every industry is really interested either in moving forward where they are, making sure they're not disruptive, they're offering new things. Kind of putting your crystal ball hat on. Are you seeing anything, that piques your interest or inspires you that sort of says, hey, maybe software is getting a little easier to build? Are we going to see it, get more, kind of democratized and able to get into, industries that weren't there before? Are you seeing anything that kind of tells you, wow, we're getting ready for another big, up curve about how fast people build software or how effective they build it?
Absolutely. We mentioned that we move forward so fast. In JFrog, we say, once you leap forward, you won't go back. And I think that the next challenge, and specifically because we are dealing with binaries, the next challenge is IoT. So if you think about it, you build your software, you build it rapidly, you push it and distribute it on a binary level, and then who is the consumers? Who are really these consumers that consumes binaries? It's all about devices and machines and robots, like what we see with Jenkins and other tools, but also other devices and machines. And I think that the next challenge for DevOps would be serving the IoT revolution. And with having a very secured pipe that can take in an automated way your binaries code, your build, your software from dev to production to the consumer, which is a machine or a device, will turn out to be the next challenge. It will be the continuous update. And we will be users. We will not be the consumers. And we are very excited to see it. We already see it happening on Bintray. And I think that will be the next DevOps challenge in the upcoming years.
Interesting. Yeah, no, we're seeing a ton of people very interested around IoT and kind of exploring all those areas. So that's fantastic. So last thing, if anybody wants to, follow what's going on with JFrog, what you're doing, maybe where the team's going to be out and about, what's the good best place to go, find out, interact with your community, interact with your team?
Well, we are everywhere, as I said. While we will be in SwampUp, our team will also be in Europe in 2 different conferences. We have Meetup, we have webinar. JFrog.com contains all the information of where we are. We are always happy to interact and meet the community. We are empowered by the community, and I think that this is what we do best. This is how we design JFrog, and this is how we execute our roadmap.
Excellent. Well, listen, very good. I thank you very much for the time tonight. It's been, to me, it's always interesting to see, kind of what's going on inside of the factory. The factory now becomes sort of a digital bits factory. It's making software instead of widgets. And I appreciate your insight into, giving us an idea of what's going on and what's driving it. So thank you very much for that. And for everybody listening, thanks for listening. For Aaron, for Shlomi, we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. May the frog be with you.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.